We are becoming all too familiar with football teams now relocating, often to brand new cities. In England, we had Pete Winkelman, or to give him his more fitting nickname, Pete Wankerman, buy Wimbledon FC and relocate them to the city of Milton Keynes, rebranding the club as MK Dons. In Germany, back in 2009, SSV Markranstadt was acquired by Red Bull and relocated to the nearby city of Leipzig, forming the hated team we know today as RB Leipzig. And in the USA, as all the teams are franchises, this can be a common occurrence. But what about football clubs moving to completely brand new countries, you may ask? Well, this is something that we have heard before. In 2024, conspiracy lover Ali Koç threatened to pull Turkish giants Fenerbahce out of the Super League after claiming that the league was fixed to Galatasaray, exploring the idea of relocating Fener to the Greek Super League. Funnily enough, this idea got shot down, but there is right now a football club which has actually moved to an entirely new country. Meet Al Hilal. No, not Ruben Neves & co, but Al Hilal Omdurman, the most successful football club in Sudan who are currently playing their football in the Mauritanian first tier Super D1. So, who are Al Hilal? What is their situation? And why are they now playing football in Mauritania? Just before we get into the video, please remember to like and subscribe to see more content like this where we do deep dives into certain football topics. And if you've got any recommendations on what I could cover next, then please feel free to leave that in the comments. Thank you, and let's begin. Al Hilal Sports Club was founded in 1930 in the city of Omdurman, Sudan, back when Sudan was under British rule and had introduced football to the nation. The name Hilal is the Arabic word for crescent, and the name was chosen on the night of the club's founding when the crescent of the moon was visible in the skies over Omdurman, therefore making the club the first ever to be named Al Hilal. They are pioneers of the Sudanese game, being the first team to wear boots in a fixture, introducing match tickets, and were the first Sudanese team to play a fixture abroad, when they featured in a tournament in Egypt in 1945, playing against the likes of Al Ahly and Zamalek. Al Hilal are the most successful football club in Sudan, boasting a record 32 league titles along with 8 Sudan Cups, with only their cross-city rivals lifting the latter more times. And it is not just Sudan which they have dominated, but they have had quite a strong impact in continental competitions, as they are regulars in the CAF Champions League, which is Africa's equivalent to the Champions League in Europe. Al Hilal often make it to the latter stages of the tournament, twice reaching the final in 1987 and in 1992, where they lost both times to Al Ahly of Egypt and Wydad AC of Morocco. In the 21st century, Al Hilal have remained dominant, winning 14 league titles and staying competitive in the CAF Champions League, reaching 4 semi-finals. Al Hilal also share a rivalry with city neighbours Al Merrikh, who are one of the biggest and most supported teams in Sudan, and they're also now plying their trade in Mauritania. So, why did they move? Since football was introduced to colonial Sudan, the authoritarian government has attempted to control Sudanese football for many different reasons, mainly for sports washing and to assert power over the population. Sudan is a nation which is football mad, with many fans seeing this as an escape from reality and a way to unify the nation. The authoritarian government are power crazy, and by taking over Sudan's biggest pride, they can control the population and monitor any potential uprisings. It has been for this reason that football has been one of the biggest threats to Sudan's government, so much so that in 1976, then President Jafar Nimiri ordered football in Sudan to be made a non-professional sport, dissolving all sports clubs and unions while seeing the national team break apart, who were one of the most prominent in Africa during this era, winning the African Cup of Nations in 1970 and nearly qualifying for the World Cup 4 years later. This was done for regulatory reasons, allowing the government more control in the sport. Following years of growth, so did the finances in the game, especially for the big clubs, creating a need for wealthier owners who sadly didn't have the cleanest reputations. Al Hilal had owners such as Salah Idris, Ashraf Saeed Ahmad, who was nicknamed the Cardinal, and Hesham Hassan al-Sabat, all of which have been suspected to be involved in corruption cases and the importation of non-conforming petrol ships. Their cross-city rivals, Al Merrikh, were hardly squeaky clean themselves. One of their owners, Adam Abdullah, was sentenced in 2005 on charges for fraud and money laundering. After the influx of dodgy owners, The dictatorship, then led by war criminal Omar al-Bashir, saw another route into controlling football. Both Al Hilal and Al Merrikh are two of the biggest football clubs in Sudan, and because of their continental success, they have huge fan bases, not only in Sudan, but across the continent. Having control over these clubs would allow the government to spread propaganda across the nation and continent whilst keeping the fan bases in check, asserting their power over the majority of the population. This was just one part of his suppressive regime, which was brought to an end in 2019 following mass protests in the capital city, Khartoum. And fittingly, many protests came from the footballing world. In December 2018, during a CAF Champions League game against Tunisian side Club African, Al Hilal Ultras, also known as the Blue Lions, began chanting, "The people want to topple the regime." This chant echoed around the Blue Jewel and then into the surrounding neighbourhoods, when at full time, mass protests formed in the city of Omdurman against al-Bashir's regime. A few months later, in March, the Blue Lions attended a game against Zambian side Zesco wearing black t-shirts, mourning the martyrs of Sudan. Football is a powerful tool for the people of Sudan, as a way of protest and showcasing to the world what is going on in their country, such as against Egypt in AFCON 2022, where before kickoff, players took the knee and raised their palms to read the Fatiha, for the souls of innocent victims who were killed during anti-coup protests. It's for these reasons why the government have tried to suppress and take over football in Sudan, proving its danger to the regime. Sadly, Sudan is still in crisis, and in 2023, another civil war broke out between two rival military groups, the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Services, which has devastated the nation, with between 150 to 522,000 people being killed, which, as you would expect, caused the 2022-23 season to be cancelled entirely. As many clubs saw their infrastructure crumble, players flee, and tensions rise further, one by one, teams started going bust, and by April 2024, it was stated that 15 clubs from Sudan's top flight had already gone out of business. The SFA, Sudan's Football Association, attempted to start the Premier League back up in 2024, but it only consisted of 4 teams: Al Hilal, Al Merrikh, Al Wadi and Tuti. The latter not even playing a single game, as the league lasted just 2 match weeks before cancelling again. The people of Sudan were left without their pride, football, which prompted Al Hilal, one of the only clubs who could afford to keep running, to look at joining a league outside of Sudan to provide a distraction from the war, along with keeping the club alive through matchday revenue and providing players a safe place to live, whilst also giving them game time, meaning players were more likely to stay contracted to the club. In March 2024, Al Hilal announced that they would be competing in the Tanzanian First League from August, with fixtures against their opponents being counted as friendlies and not affecting the league table. Despite offers from other countries, Al Hilal chose Tanzania because of the happy memories the team had during the 2023-24 season, where they played their home games for the CAF Champions League in the city of Dar es Salaam, creating a big Tanzanian following for the club. Al Hilal secretary Hassan Ali described this as, quote, "a moral responsibility. It's not about playing for winning points in cups. No, we want to make our fans proud and keep the moral high." Abdul Qadir Musa, Al Hilal CEO, also stated, quote, "The people of Sudan need to see that there is more to life than war. They need to see something on the television or hear something on the radio or television that is about sport and not about just fighting or war." After friendlies in Tanzania, Al Hilal were invited by the FFRIM, Mauritania's football federation, to take part in the Mauritanian top flight Super D1, playing their first game on the 28th of September, in which they beat Inter Nouakchott 4-1. Currently playing their home games at the Stade de la Capitale in the Mauritanian capital of Nouakchott, they find themselves 5th in the league as of February 2025, 5 points behind and 4 games in hand over league leaders Nouadhibou, along with qualifying for the quarter-finals of the CAF Champions League. Football in Sudan is back for the 2025 season with a reformed top flight, which will see more teams in the division split into 4 groups, with the top team from each group qualifying for the Champions knockout phase, whilst no team will be relegated. Many clubs from the last full season of the top flight have returned, along with the introduction of brand new teams. And as things stand, the SFA have announced that Al Hilal are scheduled to return to the top flight this season in the knockout round of the league. However, this is not set in stone. There is still serious unrest in Sudan as the civil war rages on, which could impact the league at any point like it did last year. As for Al Hilal, they still have fixtures to contest right up until the end of May in Super D1, and will also have to look at an alternative venue to play their home games. Omdurman has been heavily impacted by the war, with many buildings turning to rubble. It was revealed in 2024 by the club that their stadium, the Blue Jewel, had been looted and severely damaged, with the club stating that it could cost up to $4 million to bring the Blue Jewel back to its former glory. Al Hilal remains to be a beacon of optimism for the people of Sudan, dominating the Mauritanian game whilst going toe-to-toe with some of the biggest clubs in the continent, giving the people back home something to be proud of in such a bleak time for their nation.